Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Crypto Byte. Today is Thursday, March 3rd. Market's looking a little bit indecisive this morning. Bitcoin pulling back a bit here, but we are in a bit of a tight range here after being rejected at 45K. Plenty to talk about. Some alts pulling back as well. Some showing some strength. Always worth mentioning those. Before we get started, CJ, how you doing today, my friend?
Yeah, like Luna, cough, cough. But yeah, I don't know why it just never goes down. That and oil have just been up only the entire past week. But really excited, looking forward to getting into this market analysis. A couple of indicators I do want to show you guys as well that we haven't talked about in a while that are really interesting for like looking at the macro trend. But overall, doing well, Monty. How about you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Also, we're kind of leveling off a bit here, it seems, and we did publish a Bitcoin trade insight a couple days ago, and that's kind of contingent on a pullback to that critical 42K level. I'll talk a bit about why that level is critical, and also I want to take a look at ETH today as well because I think we got an interesting trend kind of emerging here with ETH, or kind of a prevailing trend, I suppose. So I think both of those are worth a look today. But the floor is yours to start it off. If you got anything you'd like to start off with, from traditional equities or Bitcoin.
Yeah, definitely. Let's jump in. All right. S&P opened up, still up, selling a little bit off this morning just to close the small gap, but still maintaining that bullish divergence. Not only RSI but also MACD, seeing that across a lot of indices could mean a potential rally up to 45. Being said, we also are hitting that interim resistance, so we'll see how ultimately that fares out for equities in the S&P today. Let's see what is notable today. Oil is worth checking out. I mean, we are in an unprecedented time in terms of the demand and whatnot, but we are at a doji. There has been speculators who really piled in on this trade in the short term, and we'll see what happens to oil. But it is looking a little bit overextended for now. Regardless, I wouldn't be shorting at these levels either. Treasury yields back up and starting to recover. Looks like they're putting in a higher low after finally filling that gap from yesterday on both the TNX and TYX, 10-year and 30-year Treasury notes. Uranium, I don't talk about this one often, but finally broke above, got back to the middle point of the range. We'll see if we can consolidate there and push higher. Little off topic in terms of like crypto, but macro trend of URA and CCJ, judging by a weekly charts. Here, let me refresh TradingView.
I've been having issues with TradingView this morning as well.
I mean, I'm sure me running 8 charts with like 50 indicators doesn't help, but you're right. So yeah, macro trend. Let me add the volume too, because volume has been quite interesting. It was virtually non-existent for the past decade. And then within the last year, really ever since COVID, uranium has been surging in terms of volume and supply, or the lack of supply, which is just quite interesting. And you see the same thing in CCJ, which has also experienced a massive bull run over the course of the 2000s, leading up to 2008. So just an interesting macro play there. Nothing really to do with crypto, but kind of an isolated market. Let's take a look at Bitcoin now. As you said, Monty, being rejected from that level at 45K. But, we still have oscillators turning up. We still have the MACD turning into positive momentum for the first time in quite a while. We talked about whether or not we wanted to long at this level. Yesterday, the day before, right when we started pushing off against it. And I just said no. I would rather wait for a pullback to say, the 39 level, or if we can get a bounce off of this ascending sloping trend line. A lot of times when Bitcoin, hits bottoms, you'll see these ascending triangles where you get tension between buyers and sellers before you either get a break in one direction or the other. I think that we're personally leaning more towards the breakout side of things, but also If fear comes into the market and we don't, say we put in a lower high and then get rejected at that pivot point where this level flips from support to resistance, then I'd be looking at that level for a short entry to potentially bottom of the range. I don't think that's the likely scenario if I had to bet as of today, but those are both the long and short setups that I'm preparing for on Bitcoin. I want to buy a bounce from this level, but if it falls below and acts as resistance, then I might just short it. But being said, that's a shorter term time frame. I want to talk about like a long term view at this particular point, and I want to introduce a indicator that we don't talk about very often, but it has called basically every Bitcoin bottom or every tentative bottom. Not perfectly, of course, but does a really nice job. And this is the Bitcoin Mayer multiple created by Trace Mayer back in the day, but essentially it calculates the ratio between Bitcoin's price and its 200-day moving average. And then, we get this ratio that is then plotted below price. Prices in gold here, up above, and so forth. So anyways, just to walk through a brief history of Bitcoin and the Mayer multiple, bear market of 2015 didn't mean we, immediately ascended 100% or whatnot, but that was ultimately the bottom in terms of that old bear market in which we experienced. I wasn't around back in these days, but I do remember looking at the Mayer multiple back in the bear market of 2018 and thinking, God, we're at 3,000. All the technicals and a lot of people think we're going to 1,000, but I better buy some just in case we don't, because the Mayer multiple is very oversold and it's reaching levels that are pointing towards a potential bottom. I did skip this data point right here very briefly, but even so, like, there are bear market rallies throughout 2018 in this period where it doesn't look like that much, on the log chart, but the reality was this was a $6,000 to $12,000 price rally. So you had a 100% rally bottoming out. And then, even following that, you had a rally from about 5,800, 5,900 back above 8 to 9,000. So there were decent bear market rallies, in 2018, despite just negative overall price action. So the thing that I think is interesting and worth noting right now is that we're starting to put in higher lows and rebound from those very oversold levels on the Mayer multiple, similar to how we did not only during the COVID lows, but pretty much every other local low in Bitcoin's history. So, just something to take note of, and something that could perhaps help you with some bullish conviction in the long term here.
Yeah, thank you for that, CJ. It's been incredibly accurate over Bitcoin's market cycle history, so always good to add that tool to your arsenal. But shifting back to the more micro perspective, I did want to kind of take a look at Bitcoin in terms of the immediate future, and I do want to just quickly give a free taste of one of our trade insights that we published earlier this week. So we published this on March 1st. Like CJ said, this was around the time Bitcoin was retesting that 45K level. But, we were seeing strong profit taking at this level. It was a historical resistance level. So we wanted to wait for a pullback. We're starting to get that now. As you can see, we, justified that by talking about how this level had formerly acted as resistance, now acting as support. And, now, as you can see, looking at the 4-hour chart, we are on a trajectory to head back down to retest this 42K level. I do think that this will be the most immediate test for Bitcoin to see if buyers step in. Like we pointed out, we have seen this level historically act as a highly critical level for Bitcoin on both sides of the coin here, first as resistance, then as support. Of course, we did break down below it in the middle of February with some pretty strong sell pressure, heading us to kind of retest the 35K level where, we did put in this higher low here. But now that we're kind of turning down, getting rejected at 45K once again, it's going to be interesting to see where buyers will step in. So what I'm looking for is, an uptick in volume around this 42K level. Right now, we do have relatively strong bearish volume, implying that we could continue to climb down. And then once we do kind of reach this level, I'll be looking for a bearish or bullish engulfing candle. Something like, these two candles here, implying that, perhaps this bearish momentum is dwindling. Buyers are stepping in and buying this 42K level. at least to the same extent that sellers are willing to sell into this level. And I think we could see something very comparable here. So, don't necessarily just jump right into this 40K level or 42K level, because we may see something similar to what we saw here, where, we see some continued sell pressure at this level, buyers stepping in before going higher. I think that is a somewhat likely scenario here, especially when you consider the, relative indecision we're seeing in the greater equity markets. So that's what we'll be watching for Bitcoin. It does look like we're seeing, kind of a rapid increase in sell pressure here, noted from this uptick in bearish volume. So just prepare for this retest of 42K, and, just be prepared to make a move if we get a bullish engulfing candle off this level. Last thing I did want to say, CJ, as we wrap up today's episode, is just give an update on Ethereum as well, because Ethereum, although we talk about how it, for the most part trends in tandem with Bitcoin, we are seeing a bit of a divergence in terms of recent price action and recent kind of trends. One thing that is worth noting is that this downward sloping trend line is still intact for ETH. This is something that, analysts have been noting for a long time. And although, downward sloping trend lines aren't meant to be exactly accurate or an exact science, it does give us an indication of where, sellers are stepping in, where, buyers are starting to lose conviction. And as you can see with each retest of the lows, it seems like we're getting sold into a bit sooner. Most recently here, this 3K level was highly critical, rejected again. Now, what I want to see is, the same thing I ultimately want to see with Bitcoin is a higher low. I don't want us to go below 2350 for ETH. That would not be, a good sign. Perhaps we see buyers step in around the 2600 level at the bottom of these candle bodies here. That to me would be very, very bullish. And if we did see buyers stepping in here, I would be looking to buy a bullish engulfing candle and a breakout of this downward sloping trend line. But for the meantime, sellers still stepping in at this 3K level, and ETH's downtrend remains intact. So just something to keep in mind. Those two major assets showing a bit of divergence here as we kind of close up the week. So just wanted to throw that on your radar. But I think that's all I got for today. Anything else you want to add, CJ, before we wrap it up?
Yeah, AVAX has an unlock today.
Right.
So I'll just show you guys the schedule. You never really know how these things are going to go, whether they're bearish or bullish or already priced in. Either way, I don't like to take the greatest chance. But overall, this is all publicly available information based on like vesting schedules, and investors and team members who have been holding AVAX or have bought AVAX, 1.5 years ago. They've had their coins locked for that amount of time. And now we actually have the final unlock occurring today. So that'll be 15% of what was vested for the last 1.5 years. So ultimately, it'll be interesting to see if that or how that impacts price. As you can see, AVAX is already trading down a little bit more weak of some of the other altcoins when in comparison to things like, Luna and Mir and BNB and some of the other large cap L1s. One thing I take note of, though, is just this critical level, right? If we can still hold the ascending trend line, we're still bullish. If we break below, test back up, and it acts as a resistance, then it's bearish, and we have the potential of putting in a lower high, a lower low below ultimately 70. But, I think the market is getting a little bit more bullish here. So, I'm not 100% that would be the most likely scenario. I think we're much more likely to at least find some support and potentially test upward. But then again, we'll see. The market doesn't care about what I think. I can only react and use the probabilities. So.
Yep. And we'll be doing that all day in the crypto room. If you guys want to join us, you can do so at the link below me, markrebellion.com/try crypto. We've got a pro charting service, a chat with traders from all around the world. We publish trade insights like the one we showcased a little bit ago. We have an education curriculum and a whole lot more. So definitely head over there and check that out. But I think that's all we got for today. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe on the way out. It helps out a lot. But that's all we got for today. Have a great rest of your day.